Hello and welcome to the Random Access Show. I'm Leon Panopoulos, and in today's episode we'll be speaking all about what Apple released at their event on Wednesday. It's going to be interesting, so sit tight and enjoy. I'm Leon Panopoulos and you're listening to the Random Access Show. Hello and welcome to the Random Access Show. I'm Leon Panopoulos. Now today we're talking all about the Apple event. Now that's what Apple called it themselves. It's not really that interesting of a name, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's the Apple event, and they released some interesting stuff. I think there's a lot of fuss over nothing in this event as well. The Apple Watch didn't get that many upgrades. No new AirPods. But yeah, the iPhone 15 did get announced and released. Pre-orders are actually open as of 24 hours ago, exactly, as of recording. And but yeah, let's get into it. So the Apple event was on the 13th of September. In the US, it was the 12th, so officially it was the 12th. But here in Australia, it was on the 13th of September, so that's Wednesday for us. And they released the iPhone 15, 15 Pro, Pro Max Plus, the Apple Watch Ultra, and really not much else. But the iPhone 15 did have one of the biggest changes in years, and that's all thanks to the European Union, and I'm actually a fan of this change. The USB, they've got a USB-C port instead of a Lightning port. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is your charging port. When you plug in your cable to charge your iPhone, that is, since a long time ago, it's been called the Lightning port. And it looks a lot like USB-C, but it's not. It's USB-C is hollowed out with space in the middle. Lightning port is not. And they're just different interfaces, different connections. And it's proprietary. Lightning is actually a proprietary technology that no one else is allowed to use, and Apple loves it so much for whatever reason. And I do not, because whenever I want to be able to use the same charger for my computer and for my phone. And if I need someone's charging cable, I don't want to know, alright, does this, like if I'm going over someone's place, I don't want to know, okay, does this person have a Samsung or do they have an iPhone? Because otherwise, if they have an iPhone, I need to take my cable, right? It gets really annoying sometimes. And now with USB-C being implemented, it changes things, and it makes it a lot easier. Now the EU actually enforced this change, and I did an episode where I mentioned this, and they said that USB-C must be implemented on all phones and laptops by 2024. So obviously, with all thought and basically knew that Apple was going to implement USB-C into their next phone line, and they did. It's big news in the tech world. I'm very excited about it, and I know a lot of other people are. There are people that are against it though, because they think it's restricting Apple and other companies access to create proprietary technologies, which is actually an interesting argument. I'm not going to go into that argument today, but I think I think it has some weight to it, but I also think that this is a good upgrade from the Lightning port. Now, that's not the only change, of course, on the iPhone 15, but it's the biggest one, I'd say. One of the other ones is that all models, not just the Pro, have the dynamic island. So if you don't know what that is, I did an episode on the Apple event last year, and so I mentioned the dynamic island when the iPhone 14 was released, and that was only on the 14 Pro. So now we've got it on the 14 and on the 15 and on the 15 Pro, Pro Max Plus, and all the other models. And so I always wanted a phone with a dynamic island. It looked cool since they released it on the 14 or on the 14 Pro. It looked really cool, and now I think it's just going to be commonplace amongst iPhones now. which is pretty good. It's got a 48 megapixel camera. Now that is a massive upgrade because the previous iPhones or the iPhone 14 was 12 megapixels. So that's a 4 times upgrade, fourfold upgrade, and that's pretty good. Now, I look as good as it is. I don't use a camera on my phone that often. I say around 80% of my photos are screenshots. So this camera upgrade isn't for me, but people obsess over cameras. That's why they buy particular phones. Oh, the camera is very good on this phone. That's why I'm buying an Apple, not a Samsung. Yeah, all right. So what? Camera doesn't bother me. But 48 megapixels as opposed to 12 megapixels, that's pretty good, I'd say. And it's got the same. The iPhone 15 has the same chip as the iPhone 14 Pro. So that's the A16 Bionic. The iPhone 15 Pro and the Pro Max are a different story, however. They use the A17 Pro, which has 10% greater CPU performance, 20% faster GPU, and the ability for hardware accelerated ray tracing, which is going to change the iPhone gaming landscape forever. And I know it sounds big, but it's true. Ray tracing on a phone is not something that we've seen, really. And now that's on iPhones. That's going to be pretty cool. And neural engine performance has doubled in the A17 Pro as well, so a little extra there. Now, my favorite feature that has been added to the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max has to be the action button. So the action button was on the Apple Watch, was introduced on the Apple Watch Series Ultra last year, and now it's been put into the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max. So it's going to be replacing that mute and unmute switch. So the one on the side of your iPhone that you can toggle on and off. Yeah, that makes your phone go silent or off silent. That is being replaced by the action button. Now you can keep the action button and get it to just act as the mute switch, but you can also customize it and change what it does. So you can get it to open the camera, launch an app, turn the flashlight on. You can get it to do a lot of stuff, and it's going to be really, really extensive and customizable. So I'm quite interested in what people decide to customize this button to do, but it looks like it's going to be really, really handy. I'd like to see it come onto the iPhone 16, not just on the Pro, and I think that might happen. And finally, on the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max, we've got a periscope camera. Now, what that means is it's got 5 times zoom. Now, the periscope camera on the Samsung phones, the latest ones, have 10 times zoom. This is only at 5 times zoom. So, Apple is getting there. From what I can tell, they're not as good as Samsung in the camera space. Obviously not if they're, half the zoom that Samsung's at. But, that's alright. The camera's not for everybody anyway. We'll go into the Apple Watch now, though. The Apple Watch has one of the most interesting and it's an interesting feature, to say the least. So it's called the double tap gesture, and what it is you tap your index finger and your thumb together, and so you're not touching the watch at all. You're just tapping your index finger and your thumb together, and it's a gesture. It will scroll down on your watch, or it will launch an app. It could do anything, and so it's different. It's interesting, and I want to know who created it. I want to know who came up with this gesture, because I don't know. It's not something you think of. Or we should make a gesture where you tap your thumb and your index finger together. I don't know. I like it, but it's just a bit weird. The screen now has 2000 nit max brightness, and internet-free Siri. So it's not going to tell you the weather or the sports scores without the internet, but it's going to tell you, if you want it to start a workout or start a timer, it'll be able to do that without the internet, which wasn't previously possible on the Apple Watch because it didn't have the processing capabilities. Now, speaking of processing, yeah, the processor hasn't really been upgraded on the Apple Watch. Not much difference. And the Apple Watch Ultra hasn't really had many upgrades. I don't know. I feel like this year Apple have not done much. I don't know. They've bored me. I think they usually outdo themselves, maybe, and maybe it's because they go over the top with what they usually do for events. But I don't know. I'm bored with this year's Apple event. So I don't know. Surprisingly, as I'm recording this episode, like halfway through, I got a message from Vodafone saying to pre-order my iPhone 15 Pro. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen, but is that not scary how the phone does that? I don't know. I truly believe that the phone listens to you, and it's weird. I don't like it. But finally, AirPods Pro 2 have had an update with a new USB-C charging case, and wired earpods are also switching to USB-C. There's been no named price increase with all these upgrades for the AirPods and the earpods, so let's just wait and see. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Apple move into the USB-C space. Will be the first time in a while that they've gone into something that's not proprietary, that they've introduced something that's not closed source on their own. They're going into the USB-C space, moving away from Lightning. So it'll be interesting, and yeah, I can't wait to see what comes from all the stuff that they've released at this year's Apple event. But that's it for today on the Random Access Show. I'm Leon Panopoulos. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to check out our YouTube channel and our website, and join the WhatsApp community to get updates whenever I post an episode. I've also started a new shorts series called Tech Done Fast, where I just go through the latest news topics, the smaller news topics usually, in 3 or 4 minutes. And yeah, check that out on our YouTube channel or on our Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Leon Panopoulos, however. You're tuned into the Random Access Show. Have a good weekend.